My wife said, I think we should take a break. My ex-boyfriend lost everything and needs me more than you do. I shoved the car keys to the Cybertruck I was about to surprise her with back into Moo Wallet and smiled. Hope you're happy together. 3 months later, late at night, she showed up at my door, crying with a crowd behind her. The rain hadn't started yet, but I could smell it coming. That's the thing about living in Seattle long enough. You develop this sixth sense for precipitation, this atmospheric literacy that turns the sky into a readable text. The clouds were low and bruised that Thursday evening, hanging over the city like a held breath, and I was sitting in my Tesla Model S in the parking garage of our apartment building with a set of keys in my hand that weighed approximately nothing and everything all at once. And Cybertruck keys. Angular, minimalist, expensive. The kind of thing you'd expect from a vehicle that looked like it had been designed by someone who'd watched Blade Runner too many times and decided geometry was the future. I'd been planning this surprise for 6 months, saving, researching, dealing with the waitlist, the delays, the production hell that Tesla was famous for. Emma had mentioned it exactly once, 8 months ago, at a barbecue at her sister's place in Bellevue. We'd been standing by the grill, and her brother-in-law had been going on and on about his new F-150 Lightning, and Emma had said, casual as anything, if I ever go electric, it'd be the Cybertruck. Something about it just feels powerful. She'd laughed when she said it, like it was a joke, like she didn't really mean it. But I'd heard the note of genuine desire underneath the humor, the way you can hear a melody beneath static if you're listening carefully enough. And I'd been listening. God, had I been listening. 5 years of marriage teaches you to hear the things your spouse doesn't quite say out loud, the wishes hidden inside throwaway comments, the dreams folded into casual observations. So I'd ordered it. Anniversary gift, grand gesture, the kind of surprise that was supposed to make her eyes light up, make her throw her arms around my neck and say something like, I can't believe you remembered, or this is too much, or I love you so fucking much, Daniel. The keys sat in my palm like a verdict. I was supposed to take her to dinner that night. Nothing fancy, just this Italian place in Capitol Hill that we'd been going to since we were dating. Back when we were broke, graduate students splitting an order of garlic bread and pretending we weren't trying to figure out if this thing between us was going to last. It had become our tradition. Every year on our anniversary, we'd go back to Vincenzo's, order too much wine, laugh about how different we were now, how far we'd come. Except this year, we weren't going to Vincenzo's. This year, Emma had texted me at 4:47 p.m. while I was in a meeting with a potential investor for my software consultancy firm. Can we talk when you get home? It's important. 3 sentences, 16 words. The kind of message that makes your stomach drop through the floor and keeps falling, keeps plummeting through the Earth's crust and mantle and core until it's tumbling through space on the other side of the world. Can we talk is never good. And it's important is worse. And the lack of emoji, the absence of any softening punctuation, no heart, no kiss, no love you, that was the real tell. That was the message beneath the message, the subtext screaming louder than the text itself. I'd left the meeting early, made some excuse about a family emergency, which wasn't technically a lie because marriage is family, and whatever was coming felt very much like an emergency. Drove home with my hands too tight on the steering wheel, my mind running through possibilities like a computer program stuck in an infinite loop. She's sick. Someone died. She's leaving me. She's pregnant. She's leaving me. She found out about no, there's nothing to find out about. I haven't done anything wrong. She's leaving me. The Cybertruck keys had been burning a hole in my jacket pocket the entire drive. I'd picked them up that morning from the delivery center in Renton, signed all the paperwork, arranged for the vehicle to be held there until tomorrow when I was planning to bring Emma to test drive it as a ruse. The whole elaborate surprise was supposed to unfold like a rom-com montage. Her confusion, my manufactured casualness, her dawning realization, her joy. Now the keys just felt heavy. I'd gotten home at 5:30 p.m. Emma's car, a sensible Honda Accord that she'd had since before we met, reliable and boring and practical in all the ways Emma insisted she valued, was already in its spot. I'd parked, taken the elevator up to our third-floor apartment, and found her sitting on the couch in our living room with her hands folded in her lap like she was about to deliver a eulogy. Hey, I'd said, setting my messenger bag down by the door, trying to keep my voice normal. Got your text. What's going on? She'd looked up at me, and I'd seen it immediately in her eyes. Guilt. That particular shade of brown that her irises turned when she was about to hurt me. The way they'd looked when she'd admitted she'd scratched my car 3 years ago and hadn't told me right away. Or when she'd confessed she'd forgotten my birthday dinner reservations and we'd lost the deposit. But this was different. This was guilt with weight, with consequence. Sit down, she'd said. I'd sat. And then she'd said the words that would replay in my head for months afterward. The words that would echo through my empty apartment at 3 a.m. when I couldn't sleep. The words that would become the soundtrack to my unraveling. Daniel, I think we should take a break. A break. Not a divorce, not a separation. A break. Like we were a television show going into hiatus, like our marriage was a workplace project that needed to be tabled for further review, like 5 years of building a life together could just be paused, frozen, put on hold while she figured out whatever the hell she needed to figure out. A break, I'd repeated, and my voice had sounded strange to my own ears. Distant, mechanical, like it belonged to someone else. I know this is sudden, Emma had said, and she was crying now, tears running down her cheeks in that pretty way she cried, the way that made her look vulnerable instead of blotchy and swollen like most people. I know the timing is terrible. I know it's our anniversary, but I can't keep pretending everything is okay when it's not. What's not okay? I'd asked. And I was genuinely confused because, as far as I knew, everything was okay. We didn't fight. We had sex regularly enough. We laughed together. We just booked a trip to Costa Rica for next month. We were fine, except we weren't fine, apparently. Emma had taken a breath, one of those long, shaky inhales that people take before they drop a bomb. Do you remember Marcus? Marcus. The name had landed between us like a stone. Marcus Fletcher, the ex-boyfriend. The one before me. The guy Emma had dated for 3 years in her early 20s. The relationship she'd described as intense but ultimately incompatible. The man she'd insisted was ancient history. Water under a bridge so far downstream it might as well have emptied into the ocean. Of course I remember Marcus, I'd said slowly. What about him? He reached out to me a few weeks ago. Emma's voice had gotten smaller, quieter. He's going through something really difficult right now. His business failed. His wife left him. He lost his house. Daniel, he's basically homeless. He's sleeping on his sister's couch and he's devastated. He needs support. The words had started to arrange themselves into a pattern I didn't want to see, puzzle pieces forming an image I didn't want to acknowledge. And you want to support him, I'd said. Not a question. A statement. I think I need to, Emma had said, and there it was, need instead of want, an obligation instead of desire, duty instead of choice. He doesn't have anyone else. His family has basically written him off. He's alone and drowning, and I'm one of the few people who really knows him, who understands what he's been through. Right, I'd said, because you dated him a decade ago. It's not about the past, Emma had insisted, leaning forward, her hands reaching for mine. I'd pulled back slightly, not dramatically, just enough. It's about being a decent human being. It's about compassion. If someone you cared about, if Brandon or Jake were in that situation, you'd help them, wouldn't you? Brandon and Jake were my college roommates, my best friends, the guys I'd known for 15 years. The comparison was absurd, and she knew it. If Brandon or Jake were in that situation, I'd said carefully, I'd help them. But I wouldn't ask my wife to take a break from our marriage to do it. Emma had flinched. It's not like that. Then what is it like? I'd asked, and my voice had risen slightly, the first crack in my careful composure. Explain it to me, Emma. Explain how you need to take a break from our marriage to help your ex-boyfriend. He needs me, she'd said, and her voice had broken on the word needs, shattered into fragments. Daniel, he needs me. He's talking about he's in a really dark place. He's mentioned suicide. He says, I'm the only person who ever really understood him, who ever made him feel like he was worth something. And I know it's complicated and I know the timing is awful, but I can't. I can't just ignore that. I can't just let him suffer when I might be able to help. Suicide. She'd played the suicide card. The ultimate moral trump. The conversation ender. Because what kind of monster would I have to be to say no, fuck your suicidal ex-boyfriend when someone's life might be at stake? Except Marcus Fletcher wasn't suicidal. I knew this with the kind of certainty you feel in your bones, the kind of knowledge that comes from pattern recognition, from seeing manipulation clearly even when it's dressed up as vulnerability. Marcus Fletcher was a narcissist. I knew this because I'd done my research early in my relationship with Emma, back when I was still insecure enough to Facebook stalk her ex, to scroll through old photos and tag posts and mutual friends' comments. Marcus was one of those guys who weaponized his emotions, who turned every setback into a tragedy, every inconvenience into a crisis. The kind of man who posted vague, dramatic status updates about how some people will never understand the depth of my pain, and then soaked up the concerned comments like a sponge. Emma had even said as much back in the early days of our relationship when we were still sharing origin stories, still mapping the territories of our pasts. Marcus was exhausting, she'd told me over drinks at a bar in Fremont. Everything was always so intense with him. Every argument was the end of the world. Every disappointment was a personal betrayal. I loved him, but loving him was like carrying someone on your back while running a marathon. Eventually, you just can't anymore. But she could now, apparently. Now she had the energy. So what does a break look like? I'd asked, forcing my voice back to something resembling calm. What are the parameters here? Emma had looked relieved that I was asking logistical questions instead of screaming, which might have been what she expected. I need a few months, she'd said. 3 months, maybe 4. Enough time to help Marcus get back on his feet, get him connected with a therapist, help him find a job, find a place to live, just stabilize him. 3 months, I'd repeated. And during that time, I think we should live separately. I'll stay with my sister in Bellevue. You can stay here. We'll still be married. This isn't divorce, Daniela. I'm not leaving you. But we'll just have some space to figure things out. Figure things out, I'd echoed, and I was aware I was just repeating her words back to her, mimicking her phrases like a parrot. But my brain felt sluggish underwater, unable to form original thoughts. I love you, Emma had said, and she'd reached for my hands again, and this time I'd let her take them. I do. This isn't about not loving you. You're my husband, and you're wonderful, and you're stable, and you're safe, and I appreciate all of that so much. But Marcus needs me in a way that you don't. You're fine, Daniel. You have your business, your friends, your routine. You don't need me the way he does. And there it was, the actual truth underneath all the careful language and therapeutic framing. You don't need me the way he does. Translation: you're boring. You're self-sufficient. You've got your shit together. Where's the drama in that? Where's the excitement? Where's the feeling of being essential, irreplaceable, the only thing standing between someone and the void? I'd looked at my wife, at her earnest face, her tear-streaked cheeks, her hands gripping mine like I was supposed to absolve her, supposed to give her permission to break my heart in the name of compassion. And I'd felt something inside me go very quiet and very cold. Not angry, not yet, just hollow. Okay, I'd said. She'd blinked. Okay? Okay, I'd repeated. If you need to do this, then do it. I'm not going to fight you on it. Relief had flooded her face. Really? You understand? I understand that you've made up your mind, I'd said. And I understand that arguing with you isn't going to change anything. So, yes, take your break, help Marcus. Do what you need to do. She'd thrown her arms around me then, sobbing into my shoulder, thanking me for being so understanding, so mature, so good. And I'd sat there with my arms at my sides, not quite hugging her back, feeling the Cybertruck keys in my jacket pocket pressing against my ribs like an accusation. That had been 4 hours ago. Now I was sitting in my car in the parking garage, holding those keys, and Emma was upstairs in our apartment packing a suitcase. She'd said she wanted to stay one more night, leave in the morning, but I'd suggested, calmly, reasonably, that maybe it would be better if she went tonight. Rip the Band-Aid off. Her sister was expecting her anyway. She'd agreed, still crying, still grateful for my understanding. I stared at the Cybertruck keys, turned them over in my hand, thought about the surprise that would never happen, the joy that would never materialize, the moment that would never exist. 24 months of waiting, a $100,000 vehicle, custom specs, the Foundation series with the upgraded interior, the laser-etched badging. Every option Emma would have loved without knowing she wanted them. All of it meaningless now. I pulled out my phone and texted the delivery coordinator at Tesla. Change of plans. Won't be picking up the vehicle tomorrow. Can you hold it for a few more days while I figure things out? The response came within minutes. Absolutely. Take your time. It'll be here when you're ready. I laughed at that, a short, bitter sound that echoed in the enclosed space of the car. Take your time when you're ready. How much time does it take to be ready for your wife to leave you for her ex-boyfriend? How many days, hours, minutes? Is there a formula, a prescribed grieving period before you're supposed to just bounce back and be fine? My phone buzzed. Emma, I'm all packed, about to head out. Can you come up so we can say goodbye properly? I stared at the message, at the word properly. Like there was a correct way to end 5 years of marriage on a Thursday evening in October, like there was a protocol for this, a script we were supposed to follow. I typed back, I'm in the parking garage. I'll wait here. Take care of yourself. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, okay, I love you. I'll text you in a few days. I didn't respond. 5 minutes later, I saw her. She emerged from the elevator bay dragging a large suitcase and carrying a duffel bag over her shoulder, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing the same yoga pants and oversized sweaters she wore when she was traveling, or stressed, or both. She spotted my Tesla, hesitated, then started walking toward it. I got out of the car. Hey, she said, her voice small. Hey, I replied. We stood there in the fluorescent lighting of the parking garage, with the smell of concrete and car exhaust and rain to come hanging between us, and I waited for her to say something profound, something that would make this make sense. Instead, she said, I'll call you soon. We'll figure out the logistics, bills, insurance, all that stuff. Sure, I said. And Daniel? She stepped closer, and I could see she wanted me to hug her, to give her some kind of blessing, some sign that we were okay, that this was okay. I took a step back, not dramatically, just enough. I hope it works out, I said. With Marcus, I hope you're happy together. Something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe, or hurt, or recognition that this was actually happening, that she was actually doing this. It's not like that, she said again weakly. I pulled the Cybertruck keys out of my pocket, held them up briefly so she could see them. The distinctive, angular shape, the polished metal, the unmistakable logo. Her eyes went wide. Is that anniversary gift? I said, cutting her off. Was going to surprise you tomorrow. But I think the timing's off now, don't you? I shoved the keys back into my wallet, tucked it into my jacket pocket. Daniel, drive safe, I said. Seattle traffic can be hell, even at night. I got back in my car and started the engine. Emma stood there for another moment, her suitcase beside her mouth slightly open like she wanted to say something else but couldn't figure out what. Then she turned and walked to her Honda, loaded her bags, and drove away. I sat in the parking garage for another 20 minutes, watching the empty spot where her car had been, feeling the silence settle around me like snow. The rain finally started. The first week after Emma left, I moved through my life like a ghost haunting his own routine. I woke up, I made coffee, I went to work, I answered emails, I attended meetings, I reviewed code, I approved timesheets, I came home, I ate takeout. I watched TV without watching it, my eyes pointed at the screen while my brain replayed the conversation in the living room over and over, looking for the moment where I could have said something different, done something different, been something different enough to make her stay. I found no such moment. Because the truth I was beginning to understand with a clarity that felt like swallowing glass, was that there was nothing I could have said or done. This wasn't about me being insufficient. This was about Emma needing to feel needed in that specific, desperate way that Marcus specialized in. The way that made helping him feel like a rescue mission, like salvation work, like she was the only thing standing between him and the abyss. I was too stable to provide that feeling, too self-sufficient, too fucking fine. My friend Brandon called on day 4. Dude, he said when I answered, Emma's sister just posted on Instagram that Emma's staying with her for a while. What the hell is going on? I gave him the abbreviated version. Break, ex-boyfriend, 3 months, she needs space. Are you fucking kidding me? Brandon's voice went up an octave. She's leaving you for her ex? She says it's not like that. It's exactly like that, Daniel. Jesus Christ. What are you gonna do? Nothing, I said. I'm going to wait. She said 3 months. I'll give her 3 months. That's bullshit, Brandon said. You should, I don't know, you should fight for her or something. Grand gesture. Win her back. I laughed and it sounded hollow even to me. I was going to give her a Cybertruck for our anniversary. Literally had the keys in my pocket when she told me she wanted a break. If that's not a grand gesture, I don't know what is. Brandon was quiet for a moment. Then, shit, man. I'm sorry. I said, yeah, me too. He asked if I wanted to grab drinks, talk it through, do something to get my mind off it. I told him I was fine, I just needed time. He didn't push. Nobody pushed. That was the strange thing about catastrophic life events when you're in your 30s and everyone you know is married or partnered or otherwise occupied with their own survival. People reach out. They offer support, but they don't really push. They accept your assurances that you're handling it or dealing or fine because they want to believe those assurances, because the alternative is too messy, too time consuming, too emotionally complicated. So I was left alone with my routine and my silence and the growing, gnawing awareness that my wife was 2 cities away, helping another man rebuild his life while our marriage sat in suspended animation. Emma texted me on day 8. How are you doing? I stared at the message for 10 minutes before responding, fine, you? Okay, helping Marcus with his resume. He has an interview next week, that's good. How's work? Busy, good, that's good. And that was it. The entirety of our communication. Superficial check-ins that said nothing, revealed nothing, resolved nothing. On day 12, I went back to the Tesla delivery center in Renton. The Cybertruck was waiting in the showroom, gleaming under the bright lights, its angular stainless steel body looking like it had been teleported from a future that took place in a different timeline. I walked around it slowly, taking in the details I'd obsessed over when I was ordering it. The adaptive air suspension, the ultra-hard 30X cold-rolled stainless steel exoskeleton, the armor glass. The truck bed with its motorized tonneau cover. The frunk that could fit entire suitcases. Everything Emma would have loved. Mr. Reeves? The delivery coordinator, a young guy named Jason with an enthusiastic handshake and the kind of optimism that suggested he hadn't been alive long enough to have his heart properly broken yet, approached with a tablet. Good to see you again. Are we ready to complete the delivery today? I looked at the truck, imagined Emma's face if I brought it home, parked it in the garage, sent her a photo with a caption like, "Look what I got us." Would that change anything? Would it make her realize what she was giving up? No, because the truck wasn't the point. The gesture wasn't the point. I could have bought her a fleet of Cybertrucks, a private island, a goddamn spaceship. And it wouldn't matter because what she wanted wasn't material. What she wanted was to feel essential. What she wanted was drama. What she wanted was to be needed in that specific, consuming way that I, in my stability, my emotional regulation, my fucking fineness, couldn't provide. Actually, I said, turning to Jason, I need to return it. His face fell. Return it? Is there an issue with the vehicle? We can address any concerns. No issue, I said. The vehicle is perfect. The timing just isn't right anymore. Jason looked confused, but nodded professionally. I understand. We can process the return. There will be some fees involved, but let me pull up your contract and we can go over the details. Don't worry about the fees, I said. Just process it. I walked out of the Tesla showroom 20 minutes later, having signed the necessary paperwork, having effectively flushed $5,000 in deposits and fees down the drain, and feeling absolutely nothing. On day 16, Emma called, not texted, called. Her name appeared on my phone screen at 9:47 p.m. while I was sitting on the couch in my apartment trying to decide if I was hungry enough to order food or tired enough to just go to bed. I answered, "Hey, hey," she said, and I could hear noise in the background, voices, laughter, music. Is this a bad time? No, it's fine. What's up? I just wanted to hear your voice, she said, and she sounded slightly drunk, her words a little loose at the edges. Is that weird to call just to hear your voice? I guess not, I said carefully. I miss you, she said. God, Daniel, I miss you so much. You're my best friend, you know that. Like, Marcus he's going through stuff and I'm helping him and that's important, but you're my person, you know? I'm your person, I thought, but I'm not the person you chose to be with right now. I know, I said out loud. Are you mad at me? Emma asked, her voice small and young. Be honest. Was I mad? That was the question I'd been asking myself for 16 days, examining my feelings like they were specimens under a microscope. trying to identify the exact nature of what I was experiencing. Anger would have been cleaner. Anger would have given me something to do with all this energy, this voltage that had nowhere to discharge. But what I felt wasn't quite anger. It was something colder, more surgical. It was clarity. It was the slow, dawning understanding that the woman I'd married, the woman I'd built a life with, made plans with, imagined a future with, was not actually the woman I thought she was. Or maybe she was exactly who I thought she was, and I'd just chosen to ignore the parts that didn't fit my narrative. The Emma I thought I knew wouldn't have left her marriage for an ex-boyfriend's crisis. But the Emma who actually existed had done exactly that, which meant one of two things. Either I'd never really known her, or she'd changed in ways I hadn't noticed. Both options were devastating. No, I said finally, I'm not mad. Really? She sounded relieved, almost childishly grateful. Really, I hope Marcus is doing better. He is, Emma said, her voice brightening. He got that job. It's just warehouse work for now, but it's something, you know? And he's seeing a therapist twice a week, and he's actually smiling again. It's like it's like watching someone come back to life. That's great, I said, and I meant it, sort of. I didn't wish Marcus harm. I just wished he'd found someone else to resurrect him. I should go, Emma said. We're at this bar in Bellevue. Marcus and my sister and her husband, and they're calling me back to the table. But I wanted you to know I was thinking about you. Thanks for calling, I said. I love you, Daniel. You too. She hesitated, like she was waiting for me to say the actual words, the full phrase. But I didn't. I let the abbreviated version hang there, ambiguous and incomplete. Good night, she said finally. Night. I set my phone down and stared at the ceiling, imagining my wife at a bar in Bellevue, sitting at a table with her ex-boyfriend and her sister and her brother-in-law, laughing and drinking and celebrating Marcus's resurrection while I sat alone in our apartment eating leftover pad thai from 3 days ago. The next morning, I made a decision. I called the Tesla delivery center again, asked to speak to Jason. Mr. Reeves, he said, sounding surprised. I wasn't expecting to hear from you again so soon. Did you want to discuss the return paperwork? Actually, I said, I changed my mind. I want the truck after all. Is it still available? There was a pause. Let me check. Yes, it's still here. We haven't processed the final return yet. But I have to ask, are you sure? You were pretty definitive last time. I'm sure, I said. How soon can I pick it up? We could have it ready for you by end of day if you can come in before 4 p.m. I'll be there at 3:30. I picked up the Cybertruck that afternoon, drove it home through Seattle traffic, feeling the stares from other drivers, the double takes, the phone cameras pointed at the angular beast of a vehicle as I navigated the I-5 corridor. The truck drove like a dream, silent, powerful, responsive in that unnerving way that electric vehicles are, where you press the accelerator and the world just lunges forward without the drama of engine noise or gear shifts. I parked it in my designated spot in the parking garage, 2 spaces away from where Emma's Honda used to be. And then I didn't tell her about it, didn't text a photo, didn't mention it in our sporadic check-ins. Just left it sitting there in the garage, a $100,000 ghost of a surprise that never happened. A monument to the marriage that was currently on pause. If she'd asked me why, if anyone had asked me why, I wouldn't have been able to explain it. Maybe it was hope. Maybe I was keeping it for the day she came back, the day we resumed our marriage, the day everything went back to normal and I could finally give her the gift I'd been planning. Or maybe it was something else. Something about not wanting to let go of the gesture, the intention, the love that had motivated the purchase in the first place. Keeping the truck felt like keeping a piece of who I'd been before she left. The man who still believed in grand gestures and surprises, in the idea that love could be demonstrated through careful attention to unspoken wishes. I didn't know which it was. I just knew that the Cybertruck was mine now, and it would stay in that parking garage, waiting. Time does strange things when you're waiting. It compresses and expands simultaneously, like some quantum phenomenon, where minutes feel like hours and weeks feel like minutes, and you lose the ability to tell if you're moving forward or just standing still while the world moves around you. I worked, I slept, I ate, I went to the gym, I met up with friends occasionally and pretended to be present in conversations while my mind wandered to speculation about what Emma was doing, how Marcus was doing, whether they were fucking. I tried not to think about whether they were fucking. I thought about it constantly. Not because I was jealous exactly, or maybe I was jealous, but not in the traditional sense. It wasn't about sex. It was about intimacy, about the way Emma had looked at me in our living room and said, "You don't need me the way he does." Like my self sufficiency was a failing. Like my ability to exist without constant reassurance and support made me less deserving of her attention. If they were sleeping together, and the rational part of my brain acknowledged this was not just possible, but probable, despite her insistence that this was just about helping him, then that would mean she'd chosen his need over my what? My stability? My emotional maturity? My failure to make her feel like a savior? The thought made me feel simultaneously angry and exhausted, like I was too tired to properly rage about the injustice of it all. Emma kept texting. Not every day, but often enough to maintain the illusion that we were still connected, still married, still something. Day 23. Marcus got his first paycheck. He took me to dinner to say thank you. Isn't that sweet? Day 31. My sister says hi. She wants to know if you want to come to Thanksgiving. Marcus will be there too, obviously, but she thought it might be nice for all of us to hang out. Day 38. I've been thinking about us a lot, about what we want from this marriage. I think we need to have a real conversation when I get back. I responded to each message with varying degrees of enthusiasm, always polite, never accusatory, maintaining the facade of the understanding husband who was patiently waiting for his wife to finish her mercy mission. But inside, something was crystallizing. It started small, a thought here, an observation there, and a slow accumulation of evidence that, when examined as a whole, painted a picture I hadn't wanted to see. Emma had always needed to be needed. It was there in our relationship from the beginning, if I was honest with myself. The way she'd been drawn to my struggles when we first met, I'd been dealing with imposter syndrome at my tech job, questioning whether I was smart enough, good enough, whether I belonged in a world of Stanford and MIT graduates when I'd gone to a state school. Emma had been finishing her social work degree, and she'd loved helping me work through my insecurities, loved being the person who could see my worth when I couldn't. And I'd appreciated it. I'd loved her for it. But then I'd gotten better. I'd built my own consultancy. I'd become successful, confident, secure. I'd stopped needing her reassurance, her validation, her salvation. And somewhere in that process, I'd become less interesting to her. Not all at once, not in any dramatic way. Just a slow fade, a gradual dimming of the light in her eyes when she looked at me. I'd attribute it to the natural progression of long-term relationships, the way passion settles into comfort, the way intensity mellows into stability. But now I wondered if what I'd interpreted as comfort was actually boredom, if what I'd thought was stability was actually disappointment. Because Marcus, broken, desperate, suicidal, allegedly Marcus needed her in exactly the way I'd once needed her, back when we first met. Marcus was a project, a rescue, a mission. Marcus made her feel essential. I was just furniture. This realization hit me one evening in week 6 while I was sitting in my apartment eating dinner, and Emma actually called again, not texted, to tell me excitedly about how Marcus had gotten a promotion at his warehouse job after only 5 weeks, how he was saving money for his own apartment, how proud she was of him. That's great, I said, chewing mechanically on Kung Pao chicken. Isn't it? Emma said, her voice full of that specific joy people get when they feel like they've made a difference, like they've changed a life. He was so depressed when I first started helping him, Daniel, like clinically depressed. And now he's laughing again, making jokes. He even signed up for a rec league softball team. Softball, I echoed. Yeah, he used to play in college. It's good for him to have hobbies again, to have a life. Good for him, I said. There was a pause. Then, you sound weird. Are you okay? I'm fine, I said. Just tired. Long day at work. Okay, Emma said, but she didn't sound convinced. Well, I should let you rest. I just wanted to share the good news. Thanks for calling. Daniel? Yeah? I've been thinking. Maybe we should extend this a little bit. The break, I mean. My hand holding the phone went very still. Extend it. Just another month or two, Emma said quickly. Marcus is doing better, but he's not quite stable yet. And I feel like if I pull back now, he might backslide, And I want to make sure my time here actually makes a lasting difference. I don't want this to have been for nothing. Right, I said. Can't be for nothing. So you understand? Did I understand? Yes, I understood perfectly. I understood that my wife was choosing actively and repeatedly to stay away from our marriage. I understood that 3 months had been an arbitrary number, a placeholder, a lie she'd told herself and me to make the initial break more palatable. I understood that she would keep extending this timeline as long as Marcus needed her, as long as she felt essential to his recovery, as long as she could maintain the fiction that this was about compassion and not about the fact that she'd fallen out of love with me somewhere along the way and was too conflict averse to just say so. Sure, I said. Take the time you need. You're amazing, Emma said, relieved. Seriously, Daniel, you're the best husband. Most men would be furious right now. Maybe I'm not most men, I said, and there was an edge to my voice that I hadn't intended, a sharpness that surprised me. Emma caught it. Are you mad? No, I said. Just tired, like I said. We ended the call shortly after. I set my phone down and stared at my half-eaten dinner, suddenly not hungry at all. That's when I made my second decision. I pulled out my laptop and started researching. Not Marcus Fletcher. I'd done that months ago, back when Emma first mentioned him, back when I was still insecure enough to care about her ex. This time, I was researching something else entirely. Private investigators. Because if Emma wanted to extend our break, if she wanted more time to help Marcus get back on his feet, then I wanted to know exactly what that help looked like. I wanted data. I wanted evidence. I wanted to understand whether my suspicions, which I'd been trying desperately to dismiss as paranoia, as insecurity, as the ugly possessiveness of a wounded husband, were actually grounded in reality. I found a firm that specialized in domestic investigations, read reviews, checked credentials, called and scheduled a consultation. The investigator's name was Rachel Chen. She was in her 40s, professionally dressed, with the kind of no-nonsense demeanor that suggested she'd seen every possible permutation of human betrayal and had stopped being surprised by any of it. We met in her office in downtown Seattle on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. Mr. Reeves, she said, shaking my hand. Thanks for coming in. You mentioned on the phone that you're concerned about your wife's activities during a separation? A break, I corrected. She calls it a break. Right. Rachel pulled out a notepad. Tell me what's going on. I gave her the full story. Emma, Marcus, the break, the extensions, my suspicions. Rachel took notes without judgment, her pen moving steadily across the page. When I finished, she looked up and said, What are you hoping to discover, Mr. Reeves? That was the question, wasn't it? I want to know if she's having an affair, I said. I want to know if this entire helping my ex-boyfriend thing is just a cover story for the fact that she's left me for him. And if it is, Rachel asked, what will you do with that information? I don't know, I admitted, but I need to know the truth. Rachel nodded. I can help you with that. Full surveillance package. We'll track her movements, document her interactions with this Marcus person, compile a comprehensive report with photos, video, timestamps, everything you need to understand exactly what's happening. It'll take about 2 weeks, maybe 3. It's not cheap. I don't care about the cost, I said. Most people say that at the beginning, Rachel said with a slight smile. But to be clear, this will run you about $5,000 for 2 weeks of surveillance, possibly more if we need to extend. I thought about the Cybertruck sitting in my parking garage. Thought about the $100,000 I'd spent on a gift for a woman who'd left our marriage to help another man. Thought about the absurdity of worrying about $12,000 for information that might save me from wasting any more time, money, or emotional energy on a relationship that was already dead. Do it, I said. Rachel Chen did it. The investigation took exactly 14 days. Rachel's firm was thorough, professional, disturbingly efficient. I received daily updates via encrypted email. Nothing dramatic, just brief summaries. Day 1, subject observed leaving residence in Bellevue at 9:47 a.m. Drove to Starbucks on 106th Avenue. Met male subject, presumed Marcus Fletcher, at 10:15 a.m. Conversation appeared friendly. Both subjects drove separately to Target. Purchased household items. Separated at 11:42 a.m. Day 4, Subject and Marcus Fletcher observed at dinner at Sea Star Restaurant in Bellevue. Behavior suggested intimate in a relationship, prolonged eye contact, physical touch, hand-holding, shared dessert, left restaurant at 9:23 p.m. Both subjects drove to sister's residence. Fletcher left premises at 11:54 p.m. Day 7. Subject and Fletcher observed at Fletcher's new apartment, Redmond, address on file. Subject arrived at 2:15 p.m. carrying groceries and overnight bag. Did not leave premises for remainder of surveillance period. Ended 11 p.m. Each update was clinical, factual, devastating. By day 10, I knew everything I'd suspected and several things I hadn't. Emma wasn't just helping Marcus. She was dating him. Openly. They went to restaurants, went grocery shopping, went to movies. They held hands in public. They kissed in parking lots. Emma stayed overnight at his apartment regularly, at least 3 times during the 2-week surveillance period. In the most damning detail, on day 12, the surveillance team observed Emma and Marcus at a jewelry store in downtown Bellevue, looking at engagement rings. Engagement rings. Rachel called me personally to deliver that particular update. "Mr. Reeves," she said, her voice gentle, "I wanted to give you a heads up before you see it in the full report. Your wife and Mr. Fletcher were observed at a jewelry store yesterday. They spent approximately 45 minutes examining engagement rings. The staff appeared to know them. One of my operatives went in afterward and spoke with a sales associate who confirmed they'd been there twice before. I was at my office when she called. I'd been in the middle of a video conference with a client in California, had put them on hold to take Rachel's call, thinking it was urgent. It was urgent. Twice before? I repeated. Yes, apparently they've been seriously shopping for a ring for at least a few weeks. The sales associate mentioned they're leaning toward a specific designer piece that costs about $12,000. I laughed. Actually laughed out loud, a short, sharp bark of sound that made Rachel pause. "Mr. Reeves?" "Sorry," I said. It's just the absurdity of it, you know? She's still legally married to me. We're still married. We're on a break, not divorced, and she's ring shopping." "It's not uncommon," Rachel said quietly. "People convince themselves that the timeline doesn't matter if they've already emotionally moved on." "Right," I said. "Emotional divorce before legal divorce. Something like that. When will I have the full report?" "End of this week. We're compiling everything. Photos, videos, detailed timeline, financial transactions where relevant. It'll be comprehensive." "Thank you," I said, "for your professionalism, for treating this seriously." "Of course," Rachel said. "And Mr. Reeves, for what it's worth, I'm sorry, this is never easy to discover." I ended the call and sat at my desk for several minutes, staring at my computer screen where the paused video conference awaited, my client's frozen face locked in mid-sentence. Then I closed the laptop, left my office, and drove home. The full report arrived via secure email on a Friday evening. It was 53 pages long, meticulously organized, complete with photo documentation, video clips, and a detailed timeline of Emma's activities over the 14-day surveillance period. I read it twice. Once quickly skimming for the major revelations, then slowly, carefully examining each piece of evidence with the kind of attention you give to documents that fundamentally alter your understanding of reality. The photos were the worst part. Not because they were explicit, they weren't. Rachel's team had been respectful, professional, no invasive shots, no long lens voyeurism, just straightforward documentation of Emma and Marcus existing together in the world as a couple. Emma laughing at something Marcus said outside a coffee shop. Emma and Marcus holding hands while walking through a park. Emma kissing Marcus goodbye outside his apartment building. Emma trying on a ring at the jewelry store. Marcus standing behind her with his arms around her waist, both of them smiling at their reflection. That last image felt like swallowing acid. The report also included financial information that Rachel's team had uncovered through public records and some careful social media research. Marcus's financial situation was not nearly as dire as Emma had led me to believe. Yes, he'd lost his house, sold it actually at a small loss during the divorce. Yes, he'd gone through a business failure, a cryptocurrency consulting firm that had imploded spectacularly in early 2023, leaving him with some debt but nothing catastrophic. But he wasn't destitute, wasn't homeless, wasn't sleeping on his sister's couch out of desperate necessity. According to the investigation, Marcus had been staying with his sister by choice while apartment hunting, and he'd moved into his own place, a nice one-bedroom in Redmond with $2,200 monthly rent, within a week of Emma arriving to help him. The whole narrative of Marcus as a broken, suicidal man who needed rescue, it was theater, performance, manipulation, and Emma had bought it completely. Or maybe she hadn't. Maybe she'd wanted to buy it. Maybe she'd needed the excuse, the justification, the moral framework that allowed her to leave our marriage without having to admit that she was simply choosing someone else. I sat with the report for 3 days, reading and rereading it, examining each piece of evidence from different angles, looking for alternative explanations that might soften the blow, might make Emma's actions less intentionally hurtful. I found none. On Monday morning, I called my lawyer. His name was Philip Morse, and I'd worked with him before on business contracts for my consultancy. He was sharp, pragmatic, and expensive, the kind of attorney who charged $500 an hour and was worth every penny. Daniel, he said when his assistant put me through. Good to hear from you. What can I do for you? I need to discuss divorce proceedings, I said. Against my wife. We've been separated, she calls it a break, for 2.5 months. I have documentation of an ongoing affair. I want to understand my options. Philip was quiet for a moment. Then, come to my office tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Bring the documentation, we'll go through everything. I brought the 53-page report. Philip read it in silence, his face betraying nothing, his expensive pen occasionally making notes in the margins. When he finished, he looked up and said, "This is very thorough. Where did you get it?" "Private investigator, Rachel Chen's firm." "Good firm," Philip said, nodding. "Very professional. This will be admissible if we need it, though in Washington state, which is no fault, it won't affect the divorce proceedings as much as you might think." "I don't care about punishing her," I said. "I just want out. Cleanly, quickly, fairly." "Do you have a prenup?" "No." "Significant shared assets?" "The apartment is in both our names. We have a joint savings account with about $80,000. 2 cars. Well, my car and her car. Some shared furniture and belongings, nothing dramatic." "Children?" "No. Oh, that simplifies things considerably," Philip said. "Washington is a community property state, so assets acquired during the marriage will be split 50-50 by default unless you negotiate something different. But given the circumstances, her clear abandonment of the marriage for another relationship, I think we can negotiate a favorable settlement." "I don't want to negotiate," I said. "I want to file immediately. Serve her the papers. Make this real." Philip studied me. "Are you sure? Sometimes people want to sit with this information for a while before making it official." "I've been sitting with it for 2.5 months, I said. "I'm sure." "All right then," Philip said, pulling out a legal pad. "Let's draft your petition." We filed for divorce on Thursday, November 7th, exactly 81 days after Emma had asked for a break. The petition was straightforward. Irreconcilable differences, community property division, no children, no spousal support requested by either party. Clean and professional. Philip arranged for a process server to deliver the papers to Emma at her sister's house in Bellevue. We timed it for a Friday afternoon, Emma's day off from her part-time social work position, to ensure she'd be home. I was in a meeting with a client when it happened. My phone was on silent, but I watched it light up repeatedly with texts, calls, voicemails, all from Emma. I didn't answer any of them. When the meeting ended, a productive 90 minutes discussing a database migration project, blessedly free of personal drama, I finally checked my phone. 17 texts, 9 missed calls, 4 voicemails. The texts escalated in tone from confusion to panic to anger. "Daniel, what the hell is this? You're divorcing me without even talking to me first? This is insane. We're on a break. We agreed to work on things. You can't just give up on us like this. I thought you understood what I was doing. I thought you supported me. This is so cruel. How could you do this? Call me right now, Daniel." "Fine, don't call, but we will talk about this. You don't get to just throw away 5 years of marriage without a conversation." I didn't read the voicemails, didn't need to. I could imagine the progression: hurt, confusion, anger, desperation. Instead, I texted back, "You asked for a break, I gave you one. During that break, you started a relationship with Marcus. You looked at engagement rings. You made your choice. I'm making mine." 3 dots appeared immediately. Disappeared, appeared again. Then, how did you know about the rings? Not denial, not what relationship, or you're imagining things, just how did you know? That told me everything I needed to know about Emma's internal moral calculus. She wasn't denying the affair. She was upset that I'd discovered it. I typed, "Private investigator, 2-week surveillance. I have photos, videos, detailed timeline, everything. Your lawyer can request copies if needed." The three dots appeared and stayed there for almost 5 minutes. I imagined Emma on the other end, perhaps showing her phone to her sister or to Marcus, trying to figure out how to respond to this, how to salvage the narrative she'd built. "Finally, you hired someone to spy on me? You left our marriage to help your struggling ex-boyfriend who, it turns out, is doing just fine financially and emotionally. You've been dating him openly for months. You're planning to marry him. Yeah, I hired someone to confirm what I already suspected. Sorry if that offends your sense of privacy. This is not what it looks like. It's exactly what it looks like. You can respond to the divorce petition through your lawyer. Please don't contact me directly anymore unless it's about logistics. Daniel, please. Can we just talk? Face to face. Not like this." I stared at that message and imagined meeting Emma somewhere, a coffee shop maybe, or a neutral location, and listening to her explain how this wasn't what it looked like, how she still loved me, how Marcus was just a friend, despite the kissing, the hand-holding, the ring shopping, how she'd never meant to hurt me. The old Daniel, the Daniel from 3 months ago, the Daniel who'd been holding Cybertruck keys and believing in grand gestures, might have said yes, might have wanted that conversation, that closure, that final scene. But that Daniel was gone. "No," I typed back. "We don't need to talk. You made your choice. I'm making mine. Your lawyer can contact my lawyer." I blocked her number before she could respond. Then I drove to the parking garage, got in the Cybertruck and drove. Just drove. Nowhere in particular. South on I-5, then east toward the mountains, watching the city fall away in my rearview mirror as the highway climbed into foothills and then forest. The Cybertruck handled the curves beautifully, its adaptive suspension and low center of gravity making the mountain roads feel almost too easy. I drove until I hit Snoqualmie Pass, where snow was already accumulating at higher elevations despite it only being early November. Pulled into a viewpoint and sat there with the engine off, looking at the mountains and the valley below and the last light of the day painting everything gold and purple. The truck was silent. Perfectly, completely silent in that way electric vehicles are. Like sitting in a soundproof room. I'd bought this vehicle for Emma. For a version of our marriage that no longer existed. For a woman who'd chosen someone else. And now it was just mine. I didn't feel triumphant about that. Didn't feel vindicated or satisfied or any of the emotions you're supposed to feel when you win a breakup by having the nicer vehicle or the better job or the moral high ground. I just felt tired. I drove back to Seattle as the sun set, watching the city lights appear in the distance like a constellation of questionable decisions and broken promises. Divorce, I learned, is mostly paperwork and waiting. Philip filed the petition. Emma hired her own lawyer, some guy named Richard Chen, no relation to Rachel, my investigator, who specialized in family law and had a reputation for being aggressive in negotiations. Philip assured me this was just posturing, that Emma had no real leverage given the circumstances, that this would all be over in 6 months or less. He was right about the timeline, wrong about the drama. Emma fought everything. She contested the division of assets, claiming that because I'd made more money than her during our marriage, she deserved a larger share of our joint savings. Never mind that we'd both contributed proportionally to our incomes, that we'd maintained separate accounts as well as joint ones, that the $80,000 in our shared savings represented years of balanced contributions from both of us. She wanted the apartment. Never mind that she'd been living in Bellevue for 3 months, that she was planning to marry Marcus, that she'd repeatedly told me during our break that she wasn't sure she wanted to live in Seattle anymore. She wanted my Tesla, not the Cybertruck. She didn't know about the Cybertruck since I'd parked it in a different section of the garage and never mentioned it, but my Model S, claiming it was more fuel efficient, wrong, and better for her social work job, irrelevant. Every demand was a negotiation. Every negotiation was a battle. Philip handled it with professional detachment, but even he seemed surprised by Emma's aggressive stance. "She's acting like a wronged party," he said during one of our meetings in December. Her lawyers positioning her as if she left the marriage Due to your failures as a husband, it's creative. Creative, I repeated. Not grounded in reality, Philip clarified. But create. They're trying to establish a narrative where you were emotionally unavailable, where she felt neglected, where her connection with Marcus was a symptom of problems in your marriage rather than the cause of the divorce. Is that going to work? Not in terms of asset division. Washington doesn't care about fault, but it might be her way of processing this emotionally. She needs to believe she's not the villain. She's not the villain, I said. She's just someone who fell out of love with me and was too scared to admit it directly. Philip looked at me with something like sympathy. That's a very mature perspective, Daniel. Maturity, I said. Or just exhaustion. While the legal process ground forward with bureaucratic slowness, I tried to build something resembling a normal life. I worked. My consultancy was thriving despite my personal chaos, or maybe because of it. Throwing myself into work gave me structure, purpose, something to focus on besides the slow dissolution of my marriage. I took on 2 new clients, hired another developer, moved into a larger office space. Success is anesthesia. I reconnected with friends I'd neglected. Brandon and Jake, my college roommates, made a point of inviting me to things. Basketball games, poker nights, weekend hiking trips. They didn't push me to talk about Emma, didn't demand emotional processing, just provided company and normalcy in the kind of low-stakes male friendship that involves a lot of talking around feelings rather than about them. I started going to therapy, a recommendation from Philip, actually, who suggested it might be helpful to have professional support during the divorce process. My therapist's name was Dr. Sarah Okonkwo, and she was excellent, direct without being harsh, empathetic without being pitying, skilled at asking questions that made me examine my own complicity in the marriage's failure without letting me take on more than my fair share of blame. Emma's choices are hers, Dr. Okonkwo said during one session in January. But marriage is a system. 2 people creating patterns together. What patterns did you and Emma create that made her feel comfortable leaving? That question haunted me for weeks. Because she was right, of course. It wasn't just that Emma had left. It was that somewhere along the way, I'd created a dynamic where leaving seemed like a viable option to her, where our marriage had become something she could put on pause, something flexible enough to accommodate her need to rescue her ex-boyfriend. Maybe I'd been too accommodating, too understanding, too willing to let Emma make decisions without pushback, without negotiation, without demanding that my needs matter as much as hers. Or maybe Emma was just someone who needed drama and crisis and the feeling of being essential, and no amount of healthy communication would have prevented her from leaving when someone more broken came along. Dr. Okonkwo didn't give me easy answers, just asked more questions, made me think. The holidays were strange when Thanksgiving I spent with Brandon's family in Portland, driving down in the Cybertruck and enduring the inevitable questions about where Emma was. I kept the explanation simple. We're getting divorced, she's with someone else, I'm doing okay. Brandon's mom had hugged me with the kind of fierce maternal sympathy that almost broke through my careful composure. But I'd held it together. Christmas I spent alone, which was by choice. People invited me places, my own family in Spokane, friends in Seattle, even one of my clients who'd heard about the divorce and felt bad. But I wanted the solitude, wanted to sit with the strangeness of being single during the holidays for the first time in 6 years, wanted to feel whatever I was going to feel without an audience. I woke up on Christmas morning in my apartment, which was officially mine now. Emma, having finally conceded that point in the settlement negotiations, and made coffee and eggs and sat at my dining table, looking at the Space Needle in the distance. The city quiet under low clouds. My phone buzzed with a text. I'd unblocked Emma's number a few weeks earlier at Philip's suggestion in case there were urgent matters that needed direct communication rather than going through lawyers. Merry Christmas, she'd written. I know things are weird, but I still care about you. Hope you're doing okay. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it, wanted to maintain the clean break, the professional distance, the protective walls I'd been carefully constructing. But another part, the part that had loved her for 5 years, that had bought her a $100,000 truck, that still sometimes woke up reaching for her side of the bed before remembering she wasn't there, that part wanted to respond with something real, Something honest. Thanks, I typed. You too. It was the best I could do. Emma tried to call me twice that day. I didn't answer. Didn't know what to say. Didn't trust myself to maintain composure if I heard her voice on Christmas. Didn't want to fall back into old patterns of being understanding and accommodating when what I needed was space. She left a voicemail. I listened to it 3 days later. Hey, it's me. I wanted to hear your voice, I guess. This is the first Christmas we haven't spent together in 6 years, and it's really weird. I miss you. God, Daniel, I miss you so much. I know I don't have a right to say that. I know I'm the one who left. But it's true. Marcus is great, but he's not you. He's not my person the way you were my person. Are my person? I don't know. I don't know what tense to use anymore. Anyway, I hope you're okay. I hope you're happy, or not happy exactly. But like, okay, content, whatever. Merry Christmas. I listened to the voicemail 4 times, analyzing every word, every pause, every tonal shift. Marcus is great, but he's not you. He's not my person the way you were my person. What was I supposed to do with that? What was the appropriate response to your soon-to-be ex-wife calling you on Christmas to say she misses you while she's presumably sitting in the apartment of the man she left you for? I deleted the voicemail and didn't respond. The divorce was finalized on February 14th, 2025, Valentine's Day. The universe's little joke. Philip called me at 4:37 p.m. It's done. Judge signed off on the settlement. You're officially divorced. That fast? I'd been expecting another month of paperwork, another round of negotiations. Emma's lawyer called this morning and said she wanted to move forward immediately. Stop contesting the asset division, agreed to all our terms. She seemed eager to finalize everything. Huh, I said. You sound underwhelmed. I am underwhelmed, I admitted. I thought I'd feel something when this happened. Relief or sadness or anger or something. Instead, I just feel nothing. That's normal, Philip said. The grief happened earlier. The paperwork is just administrative. He was right. The real ending of my marriage hadn't been today, with a judge's signature on legal documents. It had been 3 months ago in a parking garage with rain starting to fall and Cybertruck keys burning a hole in my pocket. This was just making it official. Thank you, I said to Philip, for everything. You were great. You're welcome. And Daniel, for what it's worth, you handled this with a lot of dignity. A lot of men would have made this uglier than it needed to be. After we hung up, I sat at my desk for a while, staring at nothing in particular. 5 years of marriage, over, dissolved, reduced to a division of assets and a filing with King County Family Court. I should have felt devastated, should have cried or screamed or gone out drinking or done something dramatic to mark the occasion. Instead, I just went back to work. Finished the code review I'd been in the middle of when Philip called, answered some emails, had a meeting with a potential new client, treated it like any other Thursday. That evening, I went to the gym, ran 6 miles on the treadmill, watching MSNBC on the overhead TV without really absorbing any information. Showered, went home, made dinner, stir fry, nothing special. Ate while scrolling through news apps on my phone. At 9:43 p.m., my phone rang. Emma. I hesitated, then answered. Hey, she said, her voice soft, tentative. I heard the divorce finalized today. Yeah, your lawyer called mine. Right. Pause. How are you doing? I'm fine, I said. You? I don't know. It's weird. It's officially over, and it's weird. Yeah. Another pause, longer this time. Then, Daniel, I need to tell you something. Okay, I'm pregnant. The word hung in the air like a detonation. Like the moment after an explosion when the sound hasn't quite reached you yet, but something fundamental has changed. Congratulations, I said, and my voice sounded hollow. It's Marcus's, Emma said quickly, like I might have thought otherwise. Obviously, we're getting married next month. Small ceremony, just family. That's great, I said. I'm happy for you. Are you? Emma asked, and she sounded genuinely curious. Are you really happy for me? Because you sound, I don't know, you sound like you're reading from a script. What do you want me to say? I asked, and now there was an edge in my voice, a crack in the careful composure. That I'm devastated. That I'm heartbroken. That finding out my ex-wife is pregnant with another man's baby on the same day our divorce is finalized is destroying me? Because I'm not, I said, cutting her off. I'm not devastated. I'm not heartbroken. I'm just tired, Emma. I'm tired of caring about you and your choices and your need to be needed. I'm tired of trying to figure out what I did wrong or what I could have done differently. I'm just tired. Emma was quiet. Then, very softly, I'm sorry for everything, for how I handled things. You deserve better. Yeah, I said, and I did. I never meant to hurt you. I know, that almost makes it worse. Daniel, I have to go, I said, but seriously. Congratulations on the baby. I hope you're happy. I hope Marcus is everything you need him to be. I hope it all works out. Thank you, Emma said, and she was crying now. And Daniel, for the record, you were a great husband. The best husband. I was the problem, not you. I almost laughed at that. Almost. Because after months of therapy and self examination and trying to understand my role in the marriage's failure, Emma was still trying to control the narrative, still trying to be the magnanimous one who took all the blame, still trying to absolve me of responsibility. We both made mistakes, I said instead. But they don't matter anymore. Take care of yourself, Emma. I ended the call before she could respond. And then finally, I cried. Not the dramatic, cathartic sobbing you see in movies. Just quiet tears running down my face while I sat on my couch in my empty apartment on Valentine's Day, officially divorced, learning that my ex-wife was pregnant with another man's child. I cried for the marriage I'd thought I had. I cried for the future I'd imagined. I cried for the Cybertruck keys in my wallet that were supposed to be a surprise, a gesture, a demonstration of love. And then I stopped crying, washed my face, went to bed, because tomorrow was Friday, and I had a client meeting at 9 a.m., and life continued regardless of personal tragedy, and there was something almost comforting about that relentless forward momentum. Spring arrived in Seattle the way it always does, gradually, tentatively, with false starts and backslides, rain punctuated by sudden bursts of sunshine that made you remember that warmth existed. I'd been divorced for 2 months, single for 5 months total if you counted from when Emma had left. People kept asking me how I was doing, and I kept saying fine, and mostly I meant it. Or at least I was working toward meaning it. Fake it till you make it, as they say. Perform wellness until it becomes real. Dr. Okonkwo would be proud of my progress, though she'd probably question my use of air quotes around the word and my tendency to intellectualize my emotions rather than feeling them directly. But therapy was helping. I was learning things about myself that I probably should have known years ago. Things like I had a pattern of choosing partners who needed something from me. Not materially, I wasn't attracted to gold diggers or opportunists, but emotionally. I was drawn to people who had problems I could help solve, wounds I could help heal, deficits I could help fill. Emma had fit that pattern perfectly. She'd been finishing her social work degree when we met, stressed and overwhelmed and doubting herself. I had been working at a stable tech job and had my shit together, relatively speaking, and could offer her emotional support and stability. And I'd love that role. Love being the person she could rely on, the steady presence in her chaotic life. But then she'd graduated, found her footing, become more confident and secure. And I hadn't adjusted, hadn't found a new way to be useful to her, a new role to play in her life, beyond stable husband with a good job. So when Marcus showed up, broken, desperate, needy, of course she'd been drawn to him. He offered her something I couldn't anymore, the feeling of being essential. Dr. Okonkwo had asked me, what do you want from your next relationship? What would make you feel fulfilled? I hadn't had a good answer. Still didn't. But I was starting to think it might be something different than what I'd wanted before. Something less about being needed and more about being chosen. Less about solving someone else's problems and more about building something together with someone who had their shit together as much as I did. Maybe that was growth. Or maybe that was just being older and more tired and less willing to tolerate drama. In March, I took a vacation. First real vacation I'd taken since the divorce, hell, since before the separation. I flew to Costa Rica, to the trip Emma and I had been supposed to take together before everything imploded. I'd considered canceling entirely, getting a refund, pretending that trip had never been planned. But Brandon had talked me into going anyway. Fuck it, he'd said. You already paid for it. You deserve a vacation. Go lie on a beach and drink rum and reset your brain. So I went. Solo travel, I discovered, was different than I'd expected. Not lonely, exactly, just solitary. Intentionally alone in a way that felt like a choice rather than a circumstance. I spent a week at a resort in Guanacaste, reading books on the beach, going on guided hikes, eating fresh fish, and drinking imperial beer, talking to other tourists when I felt like it and keeping to myself when I didn't. One evening, I met a woman at the resort bar. Her name was Jessica. She was from Austin, recently divorced like me. We spent 3 hours talking about our respective marriage implosions, laughing about the absurdity of divorce proceedings, commiserating about the weirdness of being single in your 30s after years of being partnered. You want to know the worst part? Jessica said on her third margarita. I keep forgetting I'm divorced. I'll see something funny and think, oh, I should tell Mark about this, before I remember that Mark is now engaged to his dental hygienist and I don't talk to him anymore. Yeah, I said, I get that. Phantom limb syndrome, but for marriage. She'd laughed at that. We'd exchanged numbers, agreed to stay in touch, acknowledged that we lived in different cities, but maybe we could visit sometime. We didn't sleep together, didn't even kiss. Just talked and connected and then went our separate ways the next morning when her shuttle to the airport arrived before mine. But the conversation stayed with me. The realization that other people were going through the same weird grief, the same process of learning to be themselves again, after years of being half of a couple, that I wasn't alone in this, even when I felt alone. When I got back to Seattle, I threw myself into work with renewed energy. My consultancy had grown enough that I needed to make some decisions about its future. Stay small and boutique, or scale up and hire more people and go after bigger contracts. I chose scaling up. Hired 2 more developers, a project manager, a part-time bookkeeper, moved into an even larger office space in South Lake Union. Raised my rates, went after enterprise clients. It was working. Revenue doubled. I was turning away projects because we didn't have bandwidth. I was building something real, something that belonged entirely to me. Something that had nothing to do with Emma or my failed marriage or my attempts to be a good husband. I was building the life I'd had before Emma, but better, stronger, more intentional. And I was doing it alone, which felt important, like I needed to prove to myself that I could function independently, could thrive independently, could be happy without someone else completing me, or validating me, or needing me. The Cybertruck sat in my parking garage, mostly unused. I drove it occasionally to the office, to meetings with clients who'd appreciate the vehicle's statement-making presence, once to a tech conference in Portland where it served as a conversation starter with other attendees. But mostly, it just sat there, a very expensive monument to a failed marriage, to a gesture that never landed, to a version of myself who'd believed in surprises and grand romantic acts. I thought about selling it. Probably should have sold it. Could have gotten most of my money back. Could have bought something more practical. Could have eliminated the daily reminder of Emma every time I walked past it in the parking garage. But I didn't sell it. I kept it. Maybe out of stubbornness. Maybe out of some misguided sense that the truck represented something I wasn't ready to let go of yet. Not Emma exactly, but the idea of being the kind of person who paid attention, who remembered throwaway comments, who tried to give people what they wanted before they even knew they wanted it. Dr. Okonkwo would have had thoughts about that. We talked about the Cybertruck in one of our sessions. It's interesting that you're holding on to it, she said. What do you think that's about? I don't know, I admitted. Sunk cost fallacy, spite, stubbornness? Maybe, she said. Or maybe it represents something you're not ready to grieve yet. I'm divorced, I said. I've grieved, I've moved on. Have you? I didn't answer that. In May, something unexpected happened. I got a text from an unknown number. Hi, Daniel. This is Marcus Fletcher. I know this is weird, but I was hoping we could talk. Would you be willing to meet for coffee? I stared at the message for a full minute, trying to process the audacity of my ex-wife's husband reaching out to me as if we were old acquaintances who should catch up. I should have blocked the number, should have ignored it, should have maintained the dignified distance I'd been carefully cultivating for the past 6 months. Instead, I texted back. What about? The response came quickly. Emma, our marriage. Some things I've learned that I think you should know. Intrigue warred with self-preservation. The smart thing would be to decline, to maintain my boundaries, to refuse to be pulled back into Emma's orbit. But curiosity won. Fine, where and when? We met at a Starbucks in Redmond, neutral territory, on a Saturday morning. I arrived early, got my coffee, sat at a table by the window, and watched Marcus walk in 10 minutes later looking haggard and nervous. He'd aged since the last time I'd seen him, which was never, actually. I'd only seen photos from Emma's Facebook, from back when they were dating. In person, Marcus was shorter than I'd expected, with thinning hair and the kind of soft middle that comes from sitting at a desk all day. He looked like someone who'd been through something difficult and hadn't fully recovered. Daniel, he said, extending his hand as he approached the table. Thanks for meeting me. I shook his hand briefly. Marcus, what's this about? He sat down, wrapped his hands around his coffee cup like he needed the warmth. I need to tell you something about Emma, about what actually happened. I know what happened, I said. You two got together while she and I were still married. She left me for you. You were married now. She's pregnant. That about cover it? Marcus winced. That's the surface version, but there's more to it. Things you don't know. Things she didn't tell you. Like what? He took a breath. Emma and I never actually stopped talking. After we broke up back in 2015, we stayed in touch. Not constantly. Not like we were carrying on an emotional affair or anything. Just occasional check-ins. Hey, how are you kind of stuff. Birthday messages. Comments on social media posts. That kind of thing. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Okay. And then in 2024, things got more frequent. I was going through my divorce, dealing with the business failure. She was, I don't know, she seemed restless, unhappy. She never said anything explicit about you or your marriage, but I could read between the lines. She was bored. Bored, I repeated. Yeah, she missed the intensity of what we'd had back when we were young and everything was dramatic and passionate. She'd mention you sometimes, always positively, always saying how stable you were, how good you were. But it was like she was describing a roommate, not a husband. No heat, you know? I knew, God, did I know. I'd felt that lack of heat in the last year of our marriage, that slow cooling, the gradual transformation from passionate partnership to comfortable companionship. Marcus continued, so when I reached out to her in July, when everything was falling apart for me, I wasn't actually suicidal. I wasn't homeless. I wasn't as desperate as she told you. I was struggling, yeah, but I exaggerated, made it seem worse than it was. Because I knew, he stopped, looked down at his coffee. Because I knew she'd respond to that. I knew she'd want to help. I knew she had this savior complex, this need to rescue people, and I took advantage of it. Why are you telling me this? I asked, my voice flat. Because I feel guilty, Marcus said. Because you should know what actually happened. Emma's not a bad person. She's not, but she's complicated. She needs to feel needed, and I gave her that. I manipulated her into leaving you by making myself seem more broken than I was. And it worked. Congratulations, I said. You won. That's the thing, Marcus said, and he looked genuinely miserable now. I didn't win, because now I'm married to someone who only wants me when I'm broken. The pregnancy was an accident. We weren't trying, and ever since she found out, she's been pulling away. She's realized she doesn't actually want this life. She wants the rescue, the project, the drama, but I'm actually doing okay now. I have a good job, a nice apartment, I'm in therapy and on medication, and I'm stable, and she's bored again. I should have felt vindicated. Should have felt like this was karma. Like Emma was getting exactly what she deserved. Instead, I just felt sad. Sad for Marcus, who'd manipulated his way into a marriage with someone who didn't really love him. Sad for Emma, who was trapped in a pattern she didn't seem able to break. Sad for their unborn child who would be born into this mess. Why are you really telling me this? I asked again, what do you want from me? Marcus looked up and there were tears in his eyes. I want you to know it wasn't your fault. None of it. You were a good husband. You didn't do anything wrong. Emma left because of her own stuff, not because of you. And he paused, collected himself. I want to tell you I'm sorry. I knew she was married. I knew what I was doing, and I did it anyway because I wanted her back. And now we're both stuck in something neither of us actually wants. We sat in silence for a moment. Then I said, is she still in contact with you? Who, Emma? She's my wife. No. Is Emma in contact with me? Has she asked about me? Mentioned me? Marcus nodded slowly. All the time. She talks about you constantly. About how you were so patient, so understanding, so good to her. About how she fucked up, how she made the wrong choice. About how she wishes she could take it all back. But she can't, I said. No, she can't. I stood up. Thanks for the coffee, Marcus, and for the information. I hope things work out for you. I really do. Daniel, you and Emma deserve each other, I said, not unkindly. You're both chasing something that doesn't exist. You're both trying to fill holes that can't be filled by another person. I hope you figure that out before you damage your kid too much. I walked out of the Starbucks and drove home in the Cybertruck, Marcus's confession echoing in my head. It wasn't your fault. I'd known that, logically. Dr. Okonkwo had told me that. Philip had implied it. My friends had said it explicitly. But hearing it from Marcus, from the man who'd actively worked to destroy my marriage, somehow made it real in a way it hadn't been before. Emma's leaving hadn't been about my failures. It had been about her needs, her patterns, her inability to be happy with stability and health and normalcy. I could have been perfect, could have been more attentive, more romantic, more spontaneous, more whatever, and it wouldn't have mattered. Because what Emma needed wasn't a better husband. What Emma needed was therapy. And what Emma needed was to figure out why she equated love with rescue, why she couldn't value partnership without crisis. I got home, parked the Cybertruck, and went up to my apartment. And for the first time since Emma had left, I felt something like peace. Not happiness, not joy, not relief, just peace. The quiet acceptance that this chapter was over, that I'd done my best, that I could let go of the guilt and the questions and the endless mental replaying of what I could have done differently. I couldn't have done anything differently. Emma was going to leave regardless. And that knowledge paradoxically set me free. 3 months passed. Summer in Seattle, which meant glorious weeks of 75-degree sunshine, where everyone suddenly remembered why they lived in a city that was gray 9 months out of the year. The parks filled up. The beaches along Lake Washington became crowded. Everyone's mood lifted in that collective way that happens when vitamin D finally returns to the Pacific Northwest. I was doing well. Actually well, not just performing wellness. My consultancy was thriving. We just signed our biggest contract yet with a healthcare company that needed a complete overhaul of their patient record system. It was the kind of project that would keep us busy for a year, would bring in enough revenue to really establish us as a serious player in the Seattle tech consulting space. I'd started dating someone new. Her name was Rachel. Not Rachel Chen, my investigator, different Rachel. And she was a senior engineer at Amazon. We'd met at a tech meetup, bonded over our mutual exhaustion with cloud architecture debates, and had been seeing each other casually for about 6 weeks. Nothing serious yet. Just dinner dates and coffee dates and one weekend trip to the San Juan Islands where we'd kayaked and eaten oysters and had sex that was good enough to suggest this might develop into something more substantial. Rachel was different from Emma. More pragmatic, more self-sufficient, more emotionally regulated. She had her own life, her own friends, her own interests. She didn't need me to complete her or rescue her or validate her existence. We just enjoyed each other's company. It was refreshingly uncomplicated. My apartment looked different now, too. I'd slowly been replacing the furniture Emma and I had chosen together, exercising her aesthetic preferences, making the space truly mine. New couch, new dining table, new artwork on the walls, abstract pieces from local artists, bold colors and geometric shapes that Emma would have hated but that I found energizing. The only thing I hadn't changed was the parking situation. The Cybertruck still sat in its spot in the garage, now joined by a new Model 3 I'd bought for daily commuting. The Cybertruck had become my weekend vehicle, my statement piece, my fuck you to anyone who thought I'd been defeated by the divorce. I was at my office on a Tuesday evening in late August, working late on a code review, when my phone rang. Unknown number. Seattle area code. I almost declined it, telemarketer probably, but something made me answer. Hello? Daniel? A woman's voice, familiar but not immediately placeable. This is Jennifer, Emma's sister. My hand tightened on the phone. Jennifer, hi. Is everything okay? There was a long pause. Then, no, everything's not okay. She's in trouble. She showed up at my house tonight and she's a mess. Crying barely coherent, saying she's made a terrible mistake, and there's like a crowd of people outside my house, Marcus's family, I think. They're yelling at her. The police are here. It's a whole thing, and I don't know what to do. I stood up from my desk, already reaching for my jacket. What happened? I don't know all the details, Jennifer said, sounding stressed and overwhelmed. Something about Marcus, something about money, something about the baby. Emma kept saying she needed to talk to you, that you were the only person who would understand, that she needed to explain everything. Daniel, I know you don't owe her anything. I know she treated you terribly, but could you please come? She's falling apart. Every rational part of my brain screamed that this was a bad idea, that I should stay out of Emma's drama, that getting involved would only pull me back into the chaos I'd spent 8 months carefully extricating myself from. But there was another part, smaller, quieter, but still insistent, that remembered the woman I'd loved for 5 years, that remembered waking up next to her on lazy Sunday mornings, that remembered her laugh, her smile, the way she'd looked at me on our wedding day. That part of me said, "Go. Text me your address," I said. "I'll be there in 20 minutes." I drove to Bellevue in the Cybertruck, breaking several speed limits, my mind racing through possibilities of what could have happened. Had Marcus hurt her? Had something gone wrong with the pregnancy? Had the wedding fallen apart? Jennifer's house was chaos when I arrived. There were police cars in the driveway, their lights washing the suburban street in alternating red and blue. A crowd of about 15 people stood on the lawn and sidewalk, some shouting, some crying, all apparently agitated about something. I recognized Marcus in the center of the crowd, gesticulating wildly, his face red with anger or embarrassment or both. I parked across the street, got out of the Cybertruck, and immediately heard Marcus's voice rise above the din. "Lied about everything. The pregnancy isn't even mine. She's been seeing someone else the whole time, some guy from her work. Tell them, Emma, tell them the truth." The crowd reacted with gasps and more shouting. I made my way through the chaos to Jennifer's front door, where a police officer stopped me. "Sir, are you a resident here?" "No, but the resident called me. Asked me to come. I'm Emma's—" I hesitated. "I'm her ex-husband." The officer's eyebrow went up slightly. "The ex-husband. Right, hold on." He spoke into his radio, had a quick conversation with someone inside, then nodded. "You can go in. She's asking for you." I stepped into Jennifer's house. It was a nice place. Suburban, family-oriented, with kids' toys scattered in the living room and family photos on the walls. Jennifer met me in the hallway, looking exhausted and grateful. "Thank God you're here," she said. "She's in the guest room. She won't talk to anyone, but she keeps saying your name. I don't know what the hell is going on, but maybe you can get through to her." "What happened?" I asked. "Marcus is outside saying something about the baby not being his." Jennifer's face hardened. According to Marcus's mother, who showed up here 20 minutes ago screaming accusations, Emma confessed this afternoon that the pregnancy was the result of an affair with a colleague at her social work agency. Not Marcus's kid. And apparently there's also something about money. I don't understand all of it. It's a fucking disaster. She led me to a bedroom at the end of the hall, knocked softly. "Emma, Daniel's here." A muffled sound from inside. Jennifer opened the door. Emma was curled up on the bed, still wearing her work clothes, but disheveled, her face blotchy and swollen from crying. She looked up when I entered, and something in her expression, relief mixed with shame mixed with desperation, made my chest tighten. "Daniel," she said, her voice breaking. "You came." Jennifer stepped out, closing the door behind her, leaving us alone. I stood there for a moment, taking in the scene. This was Emma at her most broken. More broken than I'd ever seen her, even more than when her mother had died 3 years ago. "What happened?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Emma sat up, wrapped her arms around herself. "I fucked up. I fucked up so badly, Daniel. Everything, all of it. I ruined everything." "I'm going to need more specifics than that." She laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Where do I even start? The pregnancy, the affair, the money? The fact that Marcus is probably going to press charges? Charges for what?" Emma took a shuddering breath. "I took money from his bank account. Like a lot of money. $30,000. He'd been saving for a down payment on a house, and I took it. Because the baby's not his, Daniel, it's Jason's. My supervisor at work. We'd been sleeping together for months. Started before I even left you. And when I found out I was pregnant, I panicked. I knew Jason wouldn't leave his wife. I knew I'd fucked up my marriage with you. So I let Marcus think it was his. And I married him. And then I took his money because I was planning to leave him, and I needed enough to start over somewhere," and she broke off sobbing. I stood there trying to process this avalanche of information, trying to reorganize my understanding of the past 8 months, trying to fit these new pieces into the puzzle. Emma had been cheating on me before she even left. The entire "I need to help Marcus" thing had been cover for an affair that was already happening. The pregnancy, the thing that had seemed like the final nail in the coffin of any possibility of reconciliation, wasn't even Marcus's. And she'd stolen from Marcus, the man she'd left me for, the man she'd married, the man whose desperate need had supposedly justified destroying our marriage. Jesus Christ, Emma, I said finally. What the fuck? I know, she said miserably. I know, I'm a terrible person and I'm the worst person. And I'm everything you probably thought I was, and worse. Why are you telling me this? Why did you ask me to come here? What do you want from me? Emma looked up and her eyes were red and desperate and so tired. Because you are the only person who ever really loved me. Not for what I could do for them, not because I made them feel better about themselves. You just loved me. And I threw that away. And now I have nothing and I don't know what to do. And I thought maybe if I could talk to you, you could help me figure out how to fix this. The audacity of it almost made me laugh. Almost. Emma, I said, very slowly, very carefully, I can't fix this for you. Nobody can. You made choices, a lot of choices, bad choices. And now you're dealing with the consequences. I know that, she said, but I need someone to tell me what to do. I can't think straight. Marcus's family wants to press charges. Jason won't return my calls. My own family is disgusted with me. I'm pregnant and alone, and I've destroyed everything, and I don't. Her voice broke again. I don't know how to survive this. And there it was. The core of Emma. The thing that had driven everything. She didn't know how to survive without someone to save her, someone to tell her what to do, someone to carry her through crisis. She'd left me because I didn't need her. But the real problem was that she needed to be needed because she didn't know how to exist without someone else holding her up. You need therapy. Okay, I said. Real therapy, not crisis management. Deep, sustained, years-long work with someone who can help you figure out why you keep sabotaging yourself and the people around you. I can't afford therapy, Emma said. I don't have a job anymore. They fired me when they found out about Jason. I don't have money and I don't have anything. I looked at her, really looked at her. This person I'd loved, this person I'd married, this person I'd imagined growing old with. She was broken. Not in the romantic, tragic way people are broken in movies, in the messy, complicated, painful way that real people are broken when they've never learned to be whole on their own. And I felt pity, not love, not anger, just profound, exhausting pity. I'll pay for your first month of therapy, I heard myself say. I'll connect you with Dr. Okonkwo, my therapist. She's good. But after that, you're on your own. You need to figure out how to take care of yourself. Because I can't do it for you. Marcus can't do it for you. Jason can't do it for you. No one can do it for you. Emma stared at me, tears streaming down her face. I don't know how. Then that's what therapy is for, to teach you how. There was a knock on the door. Jennifer stuck her head in. Daniel, the police want to talk to both of you about the money situation. I nodded, looked at Emma. Come on, let's go deal with this. The police situation took hours to resolve. Marcus decided not to press charges. His mother was furious about that decision, but Marcus, to his credit, recognized that criminal charges would ultimately hurt their unborn child more than help anyone. Instead, they worked out a civil arrangement. Emma would pay back the $30,000 over time with interest. Jennifer agreed to co-sign, which would fuck up her credit if Emma defaulted. But she felt responsible somehow for not seeing the signs of her sister's spiral. I watched this unfold from the periphery. Not participating, but not leaving either. Emma looked at me several times during the negotiations with this expression that was part hope, part desperation, part calculation. Like she was trying to figure out if I might swoop in and pay off the debt for her, might rescue her one more time, might prove that I still loved her by solving this problem. I didn't. When everything was finally settled, paperwork signed, payment plans established, police satisfied that there was no ongoing threat, it was nearly 2 a.m. The crowd had dispersed. Marcus had left with his family. The police cars had driven away. It was just me and Jennifer in her living room, drinking coffee and processing the bizarre events of the evening. Thank you for coming, Jennifer said. I didn't know who else to call. Where's Emma now? I asked. Guest room, sleeping, I think, or at least lying down. Jennifer rubbed her face tiredly. I don't know what to do with her, Daniel. She can't stay here indefinitely. My husband is already frustrated that our house has become ground zero for her drama. But I can't just kick her out. She's my sister, and she's pregnant. She needs professional help, I said. Not just therapy, like maybe inpatient treatment. She's self-destructing. Jennifer nodded. I know, but how do I get her to accept that? She thinks she's fine, that this was just a series of bad decisions, not a pattern. It's not your job to convince her, I said. You can offer support, resources, suggestions, but ultimately, she has to choose to get help. You can't force it. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Jennifer asked, did you mean what you said about paying for her therapy? Yeah, I said, in 1 month. After that, she's on her own. That's generous of you, after everything she did to you. I shrugged. I don't know if it's generous or stupid, but I have the money. And if it helps her get started on actual recovery, it's worth it. Not for her kid. That baby deserves a mother who's at least trying to get her shit together. You're a better person than me, Jennifer said. I'd have told her to fuck off. I did tell her to fuck off, I said, just in more polite terms. And after 8 months of healing and therapy and processing and figuring out my own shit, if you'd asked me to come here 3 months ago, I probably would have set the Cybertruck on fire rather than drive it to Bellevue to help my ex-wife with her latest crisis. Jennifer smiled slightly at that. The Cybertruck. Emma mentioned that once. Said you'd bought it as an anniversary surprise. Yeah, I was going to give her the keys the night she asked for a break. I pulled out my wallet, extracted the keys, looked at them. Kept them this whole time. No idea why. Symbolic, Jennifer suggested. Like you were holding on to the possibility of the marriage working out. Maybe, I said. Or maybe I'm just stubborn. I stood up to leave. Jennifer walked me to the door. Daniel? She said as I was stepping outside into the quiet suburban night. For what it's worth, Emma knows she fucked up. Like, really knows it. She told me earlier that losing you was the biggest mistake of her life. Doesn't change anything, I said, but thanks for telling me. I drove home in the Cybertruck, the streets empty at 2:30 a.m., the city lights reflecting off Lake Washington as I crossed the 520 bridge back to Seattle. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel, my new Rachel, the engineer, the woman I'd been dating. How did it go? Everything okay? I'd texted her earlier to let her know I was dealing with an emergency involving my ex-wife. She'd responded with supportive messages but hadn't pushed for details. Long story, I typed back. I'll fill you in tomorrow. Thanks for checking in. Want company tonight? I smiled at that. The offer was genuine, not performative. She was asking if I needed support, not if she could insert herself into drama that wasn't hers. I'm good, but thank you. Let's do brunch this weekend? You got it. Sleep well. I got home around 3 a.m., took a shower, fell into bed exhausted, and woke up 7 hours later to 17 missed calls from Emma. I didn't call her back, didn't respond to the texts that followed. Please, Daniel, we need to talk. I need your help with something. Can you call me? It's important. Are you ignoring me? I know you're mad, but please just talk to me. Instead, I called Dr. Okonkwo's office and left a message with her service. Hi, this is Daniel Reeves. I have a referral for a new patient. Emergency situation. My ex-wife. She needs someone as soon as possible. Please call me back to discuss. Dr. Okonkwo called me back within an hour. Daniel, she said, your message said emergency situation. Walk me through what's happening. I gave her the abbreviated version of the previous night's chaos. The affair, the pregnancy, the theft, the breakdown. And you're trying to help her, Dr. Okonkwo said when I finished. It wasn't a question. I'm trying to get her help, I corrected. There's a difference. Is there? From where I'm sitting, you're still engaging with her chaos, still trying to rescue her, still falling into the same pattern that characterized your marriage. That stopped me. I'm just paying for 1 month of therapy. That's not the same as rescuing her. Isn't it? Dr. Okonkwo's voice was gentle but firm. Daniel, we've talked about your tendency to fix other people's problems, about how that's been a pattern in your relationships. What you're describing, stepping in to solve Emma's crisis, offering financial help, connecting her with resources, that's rescuing. That's you doing for her what she needs to learn to do for herself. So I should just let her spiral? No, but you also don't need to be the one to catch her. Her sister can connect her with therapy. Social services can help with resources for pregnant women. Marcus's family could help despite their anger. There are systems in place for people in crisis. You are not responsible for saving Emma from herself. I sat with that for a moment. You think I shouldn't pay for the therapy. I think you need to examine why you're doing it. Is it truly for the benefit of her unborn child, as you told Jennifer? Or is it because some part of you still feels responsible for Emma's well-being? Still feels like her struggles are somehow your failure? Fuck, she was right. Of course she was right. I don't know, as I admitted, maybe both. Daniel, you've done tremendous work these past 8 months. You've built boundaries. You've processed grief. You've started dating someone new in a healthier way. And don't let one night of Emma's crisis undo all of that progress. You can have compassion for her situation without making it your problem to solve. So what do? You text her back and say, I hope you get the help you need. I'm not the person to provide it. Please don't contact me again unless it's legally necessary. And then you block her number, and you move forward with your life. It sounded so simple when Dr. Okonkwo said it. So clear and boundaried and healthy. It felt impossible. What if she actually needs me? I asked, and I heard how pathetic that sounded even as I said it. What if I'm the only person who can help her? Then she'll have to learn to need someone else, Dr. Okonkwo said. Or better yet, learn to need herself. You are not the linchpin of Emma's existence. You never were. That was an illusion she created, and you bought into because it made you feel important. But it wasn't real, Daniel, and continuing to act like it's real will only hurt you both. We talked for another 20 minutes. By the end of the call, I knew what I had to do. I texted Emma, I hope you find the help you need. I'm not the person to provide it. Please don't contact me again unless it's legally necessary. I wish you the best. Then I blocked her number, blocked her on social media, blocked her email, cut every line of communication except through lawyers if absolutely necessary. It felt brutal. It felt cruel. It felt like abandoning someone who was drowning. It also felt necessary. 6 months later, I was standing in my apartment on a Saturday morning in February, drinking coffee and looking at the Seattle skyline, when my phone rang. Jennifer, Emma's sister. I'd never blocked her number. She'd been decent to me throughout everything, and I figured if there was ever a real emergency, she was a reasonable conduit for information. I answered, Jennifer, hi. Daniel, I hope I'm not bothering you. I wanted to give you an update. About Emma, if you want to hear it. I hesitated. Did I want to hear it? Part of me did. Part of me was still curious about whether she'd gotten help, whether she'd figured her shit out, whether the baby was okay. Part of me wanted nothing to do with any of it. Sure, I said, I can hear an update. She's doing better, Jennifer said. She's been in intensive outpatient therapy 3 times a week since October. She found a good therapist, not Dr. Okonkwo, someone who specializes in personality disorders. Apparently, they've diagnosed her with dependent personality disorder. She's learning a lot about herself. That's good, I said, and I meant it. I'm glad she's getting help. She had the baby last month, a girl, Natalie, Jason, the father. He's involved now. He left his wife, which is a whole separate disaster, but at least he's stepping up for the baby. Emma's living in a mother-baby supportive housing program. It's helping her learn to be independent, to take care of herself and the baby without depending on others to do everything for her. Good, I said again. That all sounds really positive. There was a pause. Then Jennifer said, she talks about you sometimes, in therapy, I mean, about how she took you for granted, how she didn't appreciate what she had, and how she wishes she could apologize properly, but knows she burned that bridge. She did, I confirmed. I know, and I'm not calling to advocate for her or anything. I thought you should know she's working on herself. And she's sorry, really, genuinely sorry. I appreciate you telling me, I said, and I'm glad she's getting help. But Jennifer, this is probably the last time we should talk. Not because I'm angry, but because I need to fully close that chapter. You understand? I do, Jennifer said softly. Take care of yourself, Daniel. You're a good man. You too, I said. Tell Emma. I stopped. What could I tell Emma? What final message would be appropriate? Tell her I hope she finds peace, I said finally, and that I hope she's a good mother, that's all. I will, Jennifer said. Goodbye, Daniel. Goodbye. I hung up and stood there for a moment, feeling something shift inside me, some final release, some last little thread of connection severing. Emma was someone I used to know, someone I used to love. someone who'd hurt me badly and taught me a lot about myself in the process. But she wasn't my responsibility anymore. Wasn't my problem. Wasn't my anything. The thought should have made me sad. Instead, it made me feel lighter. My girlfriend, Rachel, was officially my girlfriend now, not just someone I was dating. Came out of the bedroom wearing one of my t-shirts and her hair messy from sleep. "Who was on the phone?" she asked, padding over to pour herself coffee. "Emma's sister," I said, giving me an update. "Emma's doing better. She's in therapy. Had the baby. Seems to be working on her issues." Rachel nodded, unbothered by the mention of my ex-wife. We'd talked about Emma early in our relationship, not obsessively, just enough for Rachel to understand the context of my divorce, the lessons I'd learned, the work I'd done in therapy to understand my own patterns. "That's good," Rachel said. "I'm glad she's getting help." "Yeah, me too." Rachel came over and wrapped her arms around me from behind, resting her chin on my shoulder. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said, and I realized I really was. "I'm good, actually good." "Good," she said. "Because I'm starving and you promised me pancakes." I laughed. "I did promise you pancakes." We spent the morning cooking breakfast together, arguing playfully about the optimal pancake to chocolate chip ratio, listening to music, existing in that easy domestic harmony that I'd thought was boring when I had it with Emma, but now recognize as actually valuable. Rachel was a partner, not a project. She challenged me intellectually, made me laugh, supported my work without needing me to support her emotionally 24/7. We had separate lives that intersected in healthy ways. We had our own friends, our own interests, our own identities beyond our relationship. It was so much better than what I'd had with Emma. Not because Rachel was objectively better than Emma, that wasn't the point, but because I was healthier now. I understood myself better. I knew what I needed and what I didn't. I'd learned to value stability without mistaking it for stagnation, to appreciate emotional maturity without seeing it as boring. After breakfast, Rachel left to go to her own apartment. She had work to do, and we'd agreed early on that we wouldn't move toward cohabitation quickly, that we'd let things develop naturally without forcing timelines. I spent the afternoon at my office. My consultancy was thriving. We'd hired 2 more people, moved into an even larger space, established ourselves as one of the top boutique firms in Seattle. I was making more money than I'd ever imagined, doing work I actually enjoyed, building something meaningful. In the evening, I had drinks with Brandon and Jake. We met at a bar in Capitol Hill, the same neighborhood where Vincenzo's was, the Italian place Emma and I used to go to for our anniversary. I'd avoided that neighborhood for months after the divorce. Too many memories, too much residual pain. But now I could walk past Vincenzo's and feel nothing but mild nostalgia. Could remember the good times without being destroyed by their ending. "You seem different," Brandon said about halfway through our second round of beers. "Lighter, maybe? Is that the right word?" "Lighter works," I said. "I feel like I've been carrying something heavy for a long time and finally put it down." "Emma?" Jake asked. "Yeah, Emma. The marriage. The whole thing. I got a call from her sister this morning. Emma's doing better, apparently. And I realized I don't care anymore. Not in a bitter way, I've moved on. Completely." Brandon raised his glass. "To moving on." "To moving on," we echoed, clinking bottles. Later that night, I drove home in the Cybertruck. My Cybertruck, not the one I'd bought for Emma, just mine now. Fully integrated into my life as a vehicle, I enjoyed driving, rather than a monument to a failed gesture. I parked it in its spot in the garage and sat there for a moment before getting out. This truck had been supposed to be a surprise, a grand gesture, proof of love. Instead, it had become something else entirely. Proof that I could survive heartbreak, proof that I could recover, proof that I could build a new life from the wreckage of an old one. I ran my hand over the steering wheel, the angular dashboard, the futuristic interior. "Thanks," I said out loud to the empty vehicle, "for being exactly what I needed, even if it wasn't what I planned." The truck obviously didn't respond, but somehow I felt like I needed to say it anyway. 2 years after that night in the parking garage, 2 years after Emma had asked for a break and I'd shoved Cybertruck keys back into my wallet, I was at a coffee shop in Fremont working on my laptop when someone approached my table. "Daniel?" I looked up. Emma. She looked different. Older, obviously, we both were, but also calmer, more grounded. Her hair was shorter. She wasn't wearing makeup. She looked like someone who'd been through something difficult and come out the other side changed. "Emma," I said, genuinely surprised. "Hi." "I'm sorry to bother you," she said quickly. "I saw you sitting here, and I debated whether to say anything, but I..." I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time, and my therapist said if I ever had the opportunity, I should take it. If you're willing, if you have a few minutes. I should have said no. Should have maintained my boundaries, protected my peace, kept that chapter closed. But I was curious, and I was secure enough now that I didn't think a conversation would destroy me. Okay, I said. Sure, sit down. She sat across from me, her hands wrapped around a paper cup, nervous energy radiating off her. I'm not going to take up much of your time, Emma said. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry, really, truly sorry. For everything, for how I treated you, for how I left, for how I handled the whole situation. You deserve so much better than what I gave you. Thank you for saying that, I said. I appreciate it. I've been in therapy for 2 years now, Emma continued, learning about why I do the things I do, why I need crisis and drama and rescue scenarios to feel alive, why I couldn't just appreciate a good, stable relationship. It's been hard work, really hard, but I'm getting better. I'm glad, I said, and I meant it. How's your daughter? Emma's face lit up. Natalie's amazing. She's 2 now. She's funny and stubborn and so smart. Being her mom has forced me to grow up in ways I didn't know I needed to. I can't just run away when things get hard anymore. I have to be stable for her. That's good, I said. That's really good, Emma. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Emma said, I heard you're with someone new. Jennifer mentioned it. I'm happy for you. Thank you. Yeah, Rachel and I just got engaged, actually, last month. Emma's smile faltered slightly, just a flicker of something, maybe regret, maybe loss. But she recovered quickly. Congratulations, that's wonderful. I hope she knows how lucky she is. I'm the lucky one, I said. We're good together. Healthy. I'm glad, Emma said. You deserve that. You always did. Another pause, then Emma asked, Can I ask you something? And you can say no, you don't owe me anything. But I've wondered about this for 2 years. Okay. That night, when I asked for a break, you said something about car keys, about an anniversary gift. What was it? I'd almost forgotten about that. About the moment in the parking garage when I'd pulled out the Cybertruck keys, shown them to her, shoved them back into my wallet. I bought you a Cybertruck, I said. You mentioned wanting one at a barbecue like 8 months before our anniversary. Probably don't even remember saying it. But I ordered one, waited through the production delays, picked it up the morning you asked for the break, was going to surprise you the next day. Emma's face went pale. You bought me a Cybertruck. Yeah, and you were going to give it to me and I... She stopped, put her hand over her mouth. Oh my God, Daniel, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I would have... It wouldn't have changed anything, I said gently. I know that now. You were going to leave regardless. The truck wouldn't have fixed whatever was broken between us. But still, the gesture, the thought, that's so... That's exactly the kind of thing you would do. Pay attention to some random comment I made and remember it months later and act on it. And I threw that away. Tears were running down her face now. I threw you away. Emma, I know I don't get to be upset about this. I made my choices, I have to live with them. But Jesus, Daniel, a Cybertruck. You were going to give me a fucking Cybertruck, and I left you for Marcus. Yeah, I said, well, you did, and it sucked. A lot. For a long time, but I'm okay now. Better than okay. I'm happy, and you're getting help. And we both learned things we needed to learn. So maybe it all worked out the way it was supposed to. Emma wiped her eyes, tried to compose herself. Do you still have it? The truck? Yeah, I said, and I kept it. Thought about selling it for a while, but ended up keeping it. Drive it pretty regularly now. It's a good vehicle. She laughed through her tears. That's very you, to keep it and just integrate it into your life. Turn it into something practical instead of a symbol. I'm a practical guy, I said. You used to complain about that. I was an idiot, Emma said. Practical is good. Stable is good. I just couldn't see it then. We talked for another 15 minutes. Not about us, not about the past, just surface level updates about our lives. Emma told me about her job. She was working at a different social services agency now, fewer hours, better boundaries. I told her about my consultancy, about Rachel, about the house we were looking at in Queen Anne. When Emma finally stood to leave, she said, Thank you for talking to me, for giving me this. I didn't deserve it, but I'm grateful. Take care of yourself, Emma, I said, and take care of your daughter. I will, she said. And Daniel, I really am happy for you. You deserve all the good things. She walked out of the coffee shop and out of my life, probably for the last time. I sat there for a moment, processing the conversation, examining how I felt. I didn't feel vindicated, didn't feel superior, didn't feel angry or hurt or triumphant. I just felt complete, like some circle had finally closed, like some story had finally ended. I texted Rachel. Just had an interesting encounter. Tell you about it tonight. Love you. She texted back immediately. Love you too. Can't wait to hear about it. Also, I found a couch I think you'll like for the new house. I smiled at that, at the normalcy of it, at the fact that my current relationship was about couch shopping and house hunting and building a life together, not about drama and crisis and rescue missions. I finished my work at the coffee shop, packed up my laptop, and headed home. The Cybertruck was waiting in the parking garage, gleaming under the fluorescent lights. I got in, started it up, pulled out into Seattle traffic, and as I drove through the city, past Capitol Hill where Vincenzo's was, past Bellevue where Emma's sister lived, past all the geographical markers of a relationship that no longer existed, I realized something. The grand gesture had landed after all. Just not the way I'd planned. Not as a gift to Emma, not as proof of love, not as a demonstration of how well I knew her, but as a gift to myself, as proof that I could survive heartbreak, as a demonstration of my own resilience. The Cybertruck had been about paying attention, about remembering, about acting on love. And I'd done all of that. The love just got redirected from Emma to myself, from a relationship that was dying to a life that was being rebuilt. That was enough. That was more than enough. That was everything. I'm sitting on the deck of our house in Queen Anne, watching the sun set over Puget Sound, when Rachel comes out with 2 glasses of wine and the smile that suggests she's up to something. What? I ask, taking the glass she offers me. Remember how you told me about the Cybertruck, about how you bought it for Emma? Yeah, I was thinking, we should get rid of it. I'm surprised by how little that suggestion bothers me. Yeah, you don't like it? I like it fine, Rachel says, sitting down next to me. But it's not really ours, you know? It's from your past, and we're building a future. I think we should sell it and buy something together. Something we choose as a couple. I think about this, about the Cybertruck sitting in our garage. We'd kept it when we bought the house, had even installed a more powerful EV charger for it. I drive it occasionally, but less and less as time goes on. You're right, I say, let's sell it. Really? You're not attached to it? I was, I admit. For a long time, it was important to me, but you're right, it's from a different life, and I like this life better. Rachel leans her head on my shoulder. You're a good man, Daniel Reeves. I'm a man who made a lot of mistakes and learned from them, I say. There's a difference. Still good, she says. Still mine. Still yours, I agree. We sit there watching the sunset, drinking wine, making plans for the future, talking about the vacation we're planning to Japan, about whether we want to try for kids soon or wait another year, about Rachel's potential promotion at Amazon, about my consultancy possibly expanding to Portland. Normal conversations, healthy conversations. The kind of conversations people have when they're building something sustainable instead of trying to rescue each other from themselves. My phone buzzes. A text from Brandon. Poker night next Friday? Jake's hosting. I text back, I'm in. Rachel too? Absolutely. Michelle's been wanting to hang out with her. I smile at that. At how integrated our lives have become. At how I have friends who include my partner, who see us as a unit, who create space for both of us. Poker night next Friday, I tell Rachel. You down? Always. She said, I'm going to take all of Jake's money again. He's going to accuse you of card counting again. Let him. Can't prove it. I laugh, pull her closer. And I realize this is what I was actually looking for all along. Not grand gestures, not dramatic love, not rescue missions disguised as relationship. Just this, just sitting on a deck with someone I love, making plans, living life, being okay. It's not a story people would write songs about. It's not a movie plot. It's not dramatic enough for social media. But it's real, it's healthy, it's mine. And that's worth more than all the Cybertrucks in the world.